We were undiscovered, didn't care for one another, you and I, you and I. We were undiscovered, didn't care for one another, you and I, you and I. Thought I was okay, till something in me changed, don't know why, don't know why. You got me.
What's up everybody, it's PJ the Great. I hope you're having a super beautiful day. And if you're new here, I do videos just like this, as well as PC builds and everything related to tech. So if that sounds like your jam, consider subscribing. And to all my returning subscribers, what's up great ones? Welcome back. Alright, so today I want to talk about a processor that not a lot of you have probably even heard of. Now we have to circle back to the reason why I'm making this video, and it's because of the Ryzen 5 1600AF. Around this time last year, we were able to get our hands on one of those for only $85, and the Ryzen 5 1600AF, just in case you don't know what it is, and you can check out my review on it, I'll link it right up here. It's pretty much a Ryzen 5 2600 in disguise. And for $85, that was a hell of a deal. It was so good of a deal, I bought two of them. And now you can't get your hands on one. And when you do find them, they're ridiculously priced. They're actually priced higher than the Ryzen 5 2600 when they're pretty much the same thing. You can get a Ryzen 5 1600AF. I think I've been seeing it on sites for like $150, $160, sometimes even $200. And the Ryzen 5 2600 can be had for $140 now. So that doesn't make any sense. Now, what if you're a budget PC builder, you only have a little bit of money to work with, and that Ryzen 5 1600AF was the sweet spot, but now you can't get your hands on it? Well, I have another alternative for you, and it comes from the Ryzen family, and it is the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700. Now, when I purchased this thing, it was like a couple months back. I only paid $92 for it, and it was on AliExpress, and I'll leave a link down below. It's a non-affiliate link if you want to go ahead and check that out. My main purpose of picking this up because I thought I was having issues with my Ryzen 9 3900X. Come to find out that I just had a bad sticker RAM. That's what was causing all of my issues. But I had no problem putting this Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 into Baby Blue 2.0 because I came from a Ryzen 7 1700 non-Pro edition before, and I really liked it. Now, if you go onto AMD's website, they do list this as a Pro model, and it was only meant for OEM builds, mainly for businesses. It's supposed to have some extra security features in there that is attractive to business owners. That's the reason why it has the Pro name within the processor, and they're still making these processors to this day, newer variants of course, but they were never meant to be sold on the mainstream market. I was only able to get one, an old one, the 1700, by going over to AliExpress, because you can pretty much get anything you want on AliExpress. Remember the Ryzen 5 3500X that we weren't supposed to have? Now at $92, I think this is a viable replacement for the Ryzen 5 1600AF. Now you may go on to AliExpress using the link that I provided and find that it's $105 now at the time of shooting this video. Just keep your eyes open on the site. I suspect that that price may go down, especially with the Ryzen 5000 series processors right around the corner, and it may go back down to $92. That's where I think it is an incredible deal. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that it doesn't come with a cooler, but you don't have to worry about that because you can go on AliExpress, you can even go on eBay and sometimes Amazon and find people selling their old Wraith coolers for like roughly $10. And to be honest with you, with the 65 watt TDP, a Wraith Stealth will work just fine on this processor. Now, as far as the stats are concerned, what does it run at? Well, it says that it runs at 3 gigahertz base, and then it has a boost of up to 3.7 gigahertz. I noticed that when I threw it into my HTPC, that it was running at 3.2 gigahertz right off the rip. And that was something that you can expect from the traditional Ryzen 7 1700, 3.2 gigahertz base with a 3.7 gigahertz boost. So of course I wanted to do some benchmarks. I wanted to compare it to my Ryzen 5 1600AF and see how it stacked up. So I did the little switcheroo and did some tests, and here is what I found in these test results. It may shock you.
We were undiscovered, didn't care for one another, you and I. Thought I was okay, till something in me changed, don't know why. You got me high, but I'm sober. You make me lonely when I'm by myself. I should be free, but I'm hoping that we could be something in the end, something more than friends. Be feeling same as the beginning. Waste of time. Somehow you intruded.
Alright, so the test results are in, and let's talk about it. And let's also talk about the fact that I forgot to clip my mic back on during that. I'll do some adjustments in editing. It's been a while since I've done a video. Wow. So first, let's talk about the Geekbench scores. Now I tried to do a screen record of that, and for some reason it didn't work out. But naturally, the Ryzen 5 1600AF being on that 12 nanometer process beat the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 in single core. But of course, the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 redeemed itself in multi-core because it has 2 more cores and 4 more threads. Now, when you look at the gaming results are where I'm shocked. Not too much, but kind of shocked, because even though the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 is an older processor compared to the Ryzen 5 1600AF, it was not too far behind in regards to gaming. We're talking about very minimal, to where the average consumer is really not going to see the difference. We're talking about like 1 frame per second difference in Shadow of the Tomb Raider and 5 frame per second difference in Rainbow Six Siege, and in 7 Days to Die, which doesn't have a benchmark, but I just had to average it out. It looks like it was performing exactly the same. Now, I think that picking up a Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 would be a lot better than getting your hands on a Ryzen 5 1600AF or a Ryzen 5 2600 for that matter, because of the extra cores and the extra threads. I mean, you see in the gaming performance, it really didn't make a difference at all. And then in the future of gaming, some games may start to take more advantage of more cores. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider is definitely one of those games where the more cores you have, the better. And you can see that in the results, how it was only 1 frame per second behind the Ryzen 5 1600AF. And I'm chalking that up to like a margin of error. So in my personal opinion, if you're a productivity person first, you like to get work done, maybe you're a photo editor or a video editor, or you do some kind of like graphics or what have you, the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 is the obvious choice over the Ryzen 5 1600AF, because you're going to take advantage of having more cores and more threads, and it won't be too shabby in gaming as well. Now, if you're primarily just a gamer and you really don't care about productivity, you're building a machine for gaming, then I would say yes, definitely lean on the Ryzen 5 1600AF, because you will get slightly better performance. But me personally, even if I were gaming first and productivity second, I would still consider the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 over the Ryzen 5 1600AF or the 2600 for that matter. Okay, so my overall conclusion is the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 is a viable option for budget builds, and I would take that over the Ryzen 5 1600AF any day. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking around, for the same price, you can get a Ryzen 3 3100 or a 3300X. Around the same price, a little bit more modern processor, 7 nanometer process. And while I'll say that's true, A, where are you going to get one? Because you can't even get your hands on one of those processors. I found one yesterday on AliExpress and I almost picked it up just for the sake of this channel. But other than that, where are you going to find one in a reasonable price, you know, at retail price? You're not going to be able to find one. Another thing is those are 4-core 8-thread processors, and while they may be good today and tomorrow and maybe a year from now or two, somewhere down the line, as I mentioned, games are going to start demanding more cores. I mean, look at the new gaming consoles that are coming out and they have like 8-core processors in them. So that is going to be the future of gaming. Then you're going to have your hands on a 4-core 8-threaded processor that's not going to do you any good in future games. Now, granted, the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 is older architecture, but at the end of the day, those 8 cores and 16 threads are not going to let you down. Now, say you're building a budget build and you've taken my advice and you picked up the AMD Ryzen 7 Pro 1700, and now you want to get your hands on one of the new NVIDIA 3000 GPUs or Big Navi that's right around the corner. Yes, I will say this, you're probably going to end up bottlenecking yourself in going that route, but I would still go with the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 over the 3100 or the 3300X or the 1600AF for that matter, if I were able to get my hands on one for $85 again. The 8 cores and the 16 threads is not going to let you down, and you can also look at it as a placeholder, because you could somewhere down the line in the future upgrade to a 3000 series processor like a 3700X once the prices start to drop. And also, in my personal opinion, the average gaming consumer, they're not going to see the difference between a Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 and a Ryzen 5 1600AF or a 3100 or a 3300X. If you're not constantly staring at that little FPS counter that's in the corner of your screen and you're just enjoying yourself and playing the games, the average consumer is really not going to see the difference. And with that being said, I would think it would be a wise move to go this route. Now, a person that is going with productivity first, like video editing, photo editing, graphics work, they definitely will see a difference choosing a 1600AF or a 3100 or a 3300X over the Ryzen 7 Pro 1700, because work like that definitely benefits from having more cores and more threads. And lastly, another thing that I noticed, like how I shared at the beginning of the video, that AMD's website says that this is not an unlocked processor. Now, for some reason on my ASRock B450M R4.0, I was able to overclock it. I overclocked it without any issues. Overclocked it to 3.6 gigahertz, and I just left it there and got even more performance out of it. So your mileage may vary, but on my particular motherboard, it allowed me to overclock it. So at the end of the day, my recommendation is, if you're Team Red, get your hands on this processor, especially if you can get it for the $92 price tag that I picked up. Once again, you're gonna have to get a cooler for it, but that's not an issue in my personal opinion. Get the cooler for it, $10. You're looking at $102 as in comparison to the Ryzen 5 1600AF that was $85. So that's $17 difference for similar performance, and on top of that, getting more cores and more threads, which will better future-proof you if you're going to be riding with this processor for like a couple of years. And we also know the issue that first gen Ryzen had with RAM compatibilities. Well, if you look on the website where I share with you, it says that it can support up to 2667 megahertz in RAM, while mine is running on 3200 megahertz of RAM without any issues, no hiccups whatsoever. So don't let that scare you away either. So if you have any questions about anything regarding this Ryzen 7 Pro 1700 that I didn't cover in this video, feel free to hit me up in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer them to the best of my abilities. And hey, if you like this video, do me a favor and give it a big old thumbs up. But if you hated it, you can give it a thumbs down. But no matter what you do, don't forget to click that subscribe button and click the bell right next to it so you'll be notified every time I upload new videos. And thank you for your patience. Once again, I haven't been consistent on the videos. Be perfectly honest with you, it's funny because I was watching one of my favorite tech YouTubers, Timmy Joe Tech, and he was talking about how he hasn't been consistent with his videos either because of the pandemic. He's been like a little depressed with the pandemic, and I'll admit I'm in that same boat. That's the reason why I haven't been creating content. I have been gaming and only rarely streaming that gaming over on Twitch just to try and get myself out of that funk. But even then, it's like I'm not even motivated to do that. I'm trying to get back into a routine and not let this pandemic get to me, and don't let it get to you guys either. Just continue to be safe, and I don't know, just be safe and hope that this will be over soon. End of the sappy stuff. Thank you for watching. This is PJ the Great saying Audi 5000G. I cannot believe I forgot to clip the mic back on. Oh, I hope I could do some magic in editing, because I really do not want to refilm that.
We were undiscovered, didn't care for one another, you and I.